It's a really good way to stick them with those books that are actually going to help improve their reading, not just like, oh, this is the same book that I'm reading over and over, or I found this book in English, could I find something in Spanish? Because that's another thing we come into with problems. I know a lot of classes use Epic and things like that, but the Spanish books are not necessarily the best, or they're very limited options. So this allows a huge amount more for our kids to have access to. The other thing that with this is we are able to use it with our emergent learners, so our English language learners who are coming to our school for the first time and learning English. So it gives them access to books that are super simple in Spanish, as well as access to books super simple in English, as well as books that are in their own language. So that way they have books that are at their level, so they can continue wherever they're at in their native language, and then also start to dabble in English in a way that's a little less daunting and kind of more basic and builds as it goes. So what we're asking for, and I need to double check these numbers because the guy that I worked with last year was giving us a discount. We did get it approved last year, but it didn't end up happening. There was some sort of miscommunication. So we're asking again to see if we can have this. It looks like it's about $482, so probably $500 on the top end in terms of getting access for, I think, all of our DI kids and then all of our newcomers that are working with Ms. Brodesky and Ms. Beebe in terms of learning English as their second language. So this would allow them to have books in English and Spanish and a lot more books at a lot more levels. So we'd have more appropriate books for kids in both languages. Yeah, we're asking for 2 licenses right now. And again, I need to double check numbers because we added the new grade, and double check with Brodesky and Beebe to make sure that our newcomer numbers are right. But that should be, we should just need 2 licenses, which would put us at 480. So again, 500 is at the top end. Yeah.
Is this per year?
Yes. Yeah, so that would be a recurring thing if we wanted to use that. So the idea was to look at if it was utilized by everyone or who utilized it, and then go from there if you want to change numbers or the what's it called, subscription. So.
Is this only for devices at school, or can they take this learning out of the school if they want to?
Yeah. So usually there is a code that we can lock kids in with. So this is one that they should be able to read at home. They can go on their computer as well as their iPad if they have an iPad. And we also have little booklets. So the idea would be eventually, if this is successful and we can do it, we can put some money into printing out all the little booklets. And then what I've used in the past is each day the kids get to bring 1 or 2 books from their level. And once they're able to sufficiently or proficiently read that book, they can move up to the next level, and it's a whole celebration. That kind of thing. So they're consistently going up, but they do have booklets, physical booklets that they can bring home, as well as access if they have electronics. Yeah.
Is this something that could be like a yearly thing? Because I hate to talk for the board next year when we may not even be on the board next year. So is this something that could be like every year thing that you guys ask for?
Could be, yeah. Right now it was just it was something that I'd used in the past in DI because I taught in Washington before, and we used this and it was really effective. So I was hoping to bring it here and see how it goes. And then I talked to ELL teachers, and they were like, oh, this could be awesome for our newcomers because we have that issue of they can't access anything. They're sitting there listening to everything in English, oh my gosh. So this kind of breaks that barrier down. And the other thing to note is that it is recorded so they can listen to them too, which is cool. Sorry.
Okay.
Even up the kickers and the fun parts. Yeah, it is something that we could look at yearly. Right now, it was just kind of can we, should we, is this actually going to help the community? So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's vote for just a subscription for this year. I would need a first and a second motion. Anybody want to go first?
First motion.
Second motion.
We got a lot.
Thanks, you guys.
We got Mike Martinez and, no, you got it. Perfect. And then you have another one?
Yeah, I have another one, and this is kind of for the whole staff. There was talk about possibly getting a mascot costume, so a jaguar. What we noticed as a staff was when we were doing district-wide things, we were noticing other schools had mascots, and they were able to bring them in and have them at community events and stuff. So we were like, we could totally get a giant jaguar and do something with that. That would be really fun. Whether it's just at school or PTO events after school or even during assemblies, it would just be something that would kind of hype our community up and get the kids really excited about seeing a giant jaguar.
Oh gosh, my sister's like, oh, do it.
Yeah. Only if you can do a backflip. Yeah, so that was just, and the high end on that is looking about $2,000. We don't know how much it's actually gonna cost, but that would be the high end of asking, so we're gonna go over that. So if we could do that, that would be super fun.
And I also need a first and a second motion on that as well.
I'll motion for that.
Yeah, I paid for you too. Perfect. I think that's it. Yeah, both are approved. Thanks, Kylie.
We didn't actually vote. There wasn't an actual vote. We just first and seconded.
Oh, wait. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
For all of them. Thank you. I kind of forget that part. Okay, so next we have the special presentation by Lindsay Korstad. She is our full-time school counselor.
All right. Good to see you all. I love that you call it special presentation. Yes, and I also love that you said full-time school counselor because this is the first year that I've been full-time in this role, which is part of the reason why I wanted to come and present about what a school counselor does. In Ben Lapine, 8 years ago when I started, I was half-time here and half-time at high school, spent some time doing that split. Then I moved into a different role here, and then I'm back in the role of school counselor. But when I started 8 years ago, I was the only school counselor at the elementary level in all of Ben Lapine. And so now I think we are up to almost all of our elementary schools now have at least a part-time school counselor. So part of our role to keep that momentum going is to advocate for school counselors and what our jobs are and how we help students. So that's kind of why I'm here. Let's see. So, like I said, this is my 8th year. I'm also a parent and I'm a PTO member, and I think I paid my dues. And I paid for my husband. He doesn't know that he's a PTO member, but I paid his dues too. Yeah, I'm not the only one. So I have 2 boys. One's in 4th grade here at Jewel, and then one's in 6th grade at High Desert. So I'm a parent and I love Jewel. Let's see. So this is just kind of like the overarching role of school counselors to provide education, prevention, and intervention activities that help students gain the knowledge, attitudes, and skills to achieve success in academic, career readiness, and social emotional content areas. So our roles as school counselors are based off the American School Counselor Association, and that's sort of like the template for how we deliver services to students. So if you're ever interested, you can check that out. And I'm going to go through a couple slides with different explanations of what a school counselor does. But I think it's important also to mention what a school counselor doesn't do, just to make sure that like expectations are just clearly described. School counselors don't provide long-term mental health therapy. We don't diagnose students or write treatment plans. We don't take clinical notes or bill insurance, and we don't do psychological assessments. So I think, you know, when we hear school counselor, we hear school psychologist, and I'm looking at you, Monica. Monica's a school psychologist. And we hear therapists. Like sometimes those roles all get kind of mixed up, and it's hard to decipher what exactly is done where. But I can certainly help refer students to a therapist outside of school who does all of those things more long-term, you know, that typical like hour-long meeting. But that is not something that is done in the schools. Let's see. So almost everything in education is in the form of a triangle, and I'll explain why. I could have put like 5 different triangles up here, but it's a really great way for us to articulate how our services are delivered, both with the role of the school counselor and then also academics as well. So this is, the fancy word is multi-tiered, multi-domain systems and supports, which is really confusing. But if you think about like the bottom of a triangle, these are services that all students get. So universal supports. And my role is to go into classrooms and deliver classroom lessons using curriculum that's approved by our district. And I'll talk about that in a second. So that's kind of like the baseline, the starting point for how school counselors provide preventative services. So upstream prevention, giving students skills to minimize the need for intervention later on. So 80% of students do just fine with that. That's good to the extent of what they need. They're developing the skills, they're showing growth in those areas. And that's good. So then we have, so this is called tier 1. Tier 2 would be kind of the next step up. So let's say whatever curriculum's being delivered within the classroom or the whole school, everybody's getting it, isn't quite enough. That student is showing that they need a little bit more support in that area. That's where I would come in and potentially run a small group for 8 to 9 weeks. That's an intervention cycle where we do some skill building or some work around specific areas of social emotional learning that they might need. Or I might be working with the student individually on some skills that they need for a period of time. And 15% of students, that's what they need. They needed tier 1, tier 2, and then they're, growing and developing. And then tier 3 is kind of the top of the triangle, and that's where I'm meeting with students individually, kind of providing some more maybe crisis support, spending a little bit more time communicating with families, communicating with teachers, like a little bit more intensive care, and then referring out to services. So if you think about our students kind of come into school, they're given, universal supports. If the data shows they need a little bit more, we'll provide them with our tier 2 intervention, see how that goes. If they need a little bit more, they'll get some more intensive supports, and then we try to see, okay, who else in the community, how can we make sure that that student is getting some more maybe mental health support outside of school. So that's really a quick snapshot of the triangle in terms of the main 3 activities that I do: classroom lessons, small groups, meeting with individuals. So those are the direct student services that I'm doing throughout the day with students. And there's just a host of other things that I do. I'm going to come back to that slide in a second. Outside of that, in terms of collaboration and communication. So these are kind of, like I just said, classroom lessons, small groups, individual counseling. We have our care team. I'll talk about that in a second. Consultation is obviously consultation, staff and family collaboration, and then referral to outside services. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but I was just thinking, okay, what am I doing now? And here's just a lot that's happening right now. And this is not the extent of what I'm trying to do throughout the year. But for example, with classroom lessons, Ben Lapine has purchased us some new curriculum, which is really exciting. And I just got it. But students in kinder, first, and second at least will be getting, starting this week for kinder and second grade, they'll be doing about 8 weeks of Kelso's Choices. So if you've been around the school, you've probably seen this wheel. This one is gigantic. I don't know why they're so big, but I love it. So Kelso and Lily are frogs, and there's puppets. And so the kindergartners love them. And there's 9 sort of social problem solving strategies that they learn. And I tell students all the time, these are ones that I use every day as an adult. I walk away, I talk it out, I ignore things all the time. So these are really useful strategies that we want our students to be able to use to resolve their everyday small problems peacefully. And I think families of kinder, first, and second graders will be getting a wheel coming home, not one this big, but an 8.5 by 10 to have at home. So that's Kelso's Choices. And then zones of regulation, I just got that. This is kind of helping students to understand what's happening in their bodies, how are they feeling, and then kind of connecting to colors so that they kind of get that sense of, well, I'm kind of in the blue zone. I'm running a little slow today. I'm tired, I'm not feeling well. And then here's some tools, coping tools I could do to help take care of myself, creating that self-advocacy for students. So that's another curriculum that we got. So a highlight of small groups that both myself and then our school psychologist, Melissa Shear, who's not here, what we do is we have a therapy dog come in, which is really cool. His name's Quincy. He's a pretty large golden retriever, and he's really wonderful. So we're working hard to figure out how to allow as many students as we can to access some time with Quincy. because it's so therapeutic, and there's so much that can be done in terms of social emotional learning around Quincy and that time spent with him. So small groups might range from focuses on friendship, community, self-regulation, conflict resolution, family changes, impulse control, grief, coping tools for stress, anxiety, and then lunch buddies. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So individual counseling. So my kind of one thing that I always like to share about working with students individually is that, like, well, I'll go back here. Confidentiality is a pretty important part of the role of a school counselor because it's ethically required for, and this is actually the poster that I have in my room, and I tell every student when they come in with me, whether it's just in an individual or in a small group, that what they say to me when we're talking, it stays in the room unless someone's hurting them, they're hurting themselves or thinking about hurting themselves, they're hurting someone else, or if they want me to share kind of what we're talking about. So that's just kind of a note of my role. Obviously, I'm a DHS mandated reporter, like all employees in the school are. And then our district has a protocol and a process for self-harm and suicide risk protocols. So that's when sometimes if a student is thinking about hurting themselves or hurting someone else, then they would obviously have to break confidentiality. Let's see. Okay, and one thing that I lost my thought there. But when I'm working with students individually, I feel like the best thing that I do is like never seen by anybody because it's just the kid and I. And I'm like, oh, I just reflected what you were saying so well. I just validated you. Like I just gave you this great summary of like what you're thinking and feeling, you know, especially for kinder and first and second graders. A lot of it's play-based and they're not verbalizing necessarily how they're feeling or what's going on. I'm doing a lot of the work to try to like get a sense of what's going on. I'm asking them lots of open-ended questions. And then if I think I'm kind of on the right track and I'm like, oh, you're mad about this, and they nod their head, I'm like, okay, you know. So much of my role is really just being attuned to kids, meeting them where they're at, and that's why I put strengths-based is, you know, my job is to be an advocate for students, to sit with them, to sit alongside them. So many times. Just because of power dynamics from young people to adults, like kids, they go unheard. And that's no fault of our own. That's just naturally sometimes what happens. Even my own kids, they're probably like, Mom, why don't get a school counselor? Because you're the school counselor. Now who do I talk to? But like I just try to kind of always give students unconditional positive regard and know that they're trying their best. And know that like we as families are trying our best. To raise our kids, and it's sometimes really hard. And then every week, our student support team, so Jesse, Eric, myself, our school psychologist, our 2 learning specialists, so our special ed department, Darlene Becker from downtown, who's our student success coach, our student success clinician, we all meet as a team we have a pretty solid system here at Jewel in terms of student support process, and we're always trying to refine that to make sure that we're looking at the data in that triangle to see like who is in need of more services. And so we take referrals from teachers on students who might need more interventions. We meet weekly. A lot of my role is managing that agenda, following up on the referrals that come through, like tracking data. I'm always talking with teachers, consulting with families, thinking about creative ideas for kids. Like sometimes the strangest things work for a kid when you would have no idea. For example, this wasn't something that I had put together, but we found out that a kindergartner really loved to vacuum. So the teacher was able to create an incentive so that at the end of the day, he got to vacuum. And like that shifted some of the behavior, which was really cool. And then ways that I support staff, every other Friday, give and take, I'll open up my classroom to staff to come in to sort of have a wellness circle. We call it Filter Free Friday. And yeah, what else? Referrals to outside services. I do that a lot. I have, at the end of this, if you're interested, I have kind of packets with a lot of resources, including some referral resources for Care Solace, which is Ben Lepine's third party. It's a company that we contract with that does all the legwork to get students connected to counseling. So you as families, and families can sign up on their own, or I can send a referral in for a student and they get your insurance information, all your kind of what you're looking for in terms of a counselor, and then they kind of provide you with a list where they'll call around to those places to help that process go a little smoother, because there's lots of wait lists here in Central Oregon. What else? And then this year, this is really exciting, and I'm like just now trying to really spread the word because it starts in January. So OSU Cascades has a Masters of Counseling program, and this is the first year that they are going to send their practicum students here, starting in January for their winter and spring terms. There's 6 practicum students, and practicum students are Master of Counseling students who it's their first step into a building in the role of a school counselor. So maybe they've worked in education before, maybe they've been a teacher, maybe they've not, and they're coming from a different job. But they're going to be delivering classroom lessons, small groups, and individual counseling to our students as a way for them to practice their skills before they go out into their jobs. So that's really exciting for us because it's going to give us 6 extra adults in the building working with our students. My role is to help coordinate a lot of that and coordinate who's teaching what and where and stuff like that. So that's really exciting, I think, for our school. And then, just so you all know, Ben Lepine Schools on their district webpage under parents has student support resources, and there's a ton of resources on there. So that's a good place to go if you're needing support for your students, support for yourself, or just anything. And that's it.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I'll leave these just over here if anybody's interested.
Thanks, Lindsay. Next is mini meta review. We did super good, but before we get to that, I want to thank Crabtree Architectural and Design, like a mouthful. They donated the water bottles this year, so thank you guys. That was huge. We raised $26,295 this year. It was almost $2,000 more than last year. Elisa's is a little bit off from my number, but we're pretty close to 27,000.
It's fees.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, it is the fees. Okay, yeah, it's the fees. So we raised like 27,000, but really it's like 26,000. So
I'll discuss it.
yeah, thanks. So anyway, that's amazing. Let's see. Next we have the playground update.
Yeah, just really quick, we have a meeting on Wednesday, 2 days from now at 5 right here. And we're just gonna review some proposals. We're getting really close to finalizing that in the budget, and then we can start fundraising as long as the district approves that plan. So, if you wanna come on Wednesday, that'd be great. Otherwise, you can always email PTO and I can respond with anything. So.
Next, we have the bylaw addendum. That should be attached to what you guys have. So we presented a bylaw addendum that'll have Elena talk about.
The addendum is not attached to this, sorry.
Oh, it is not?
No.
Oh, okay. Should we vote on it next month then, since people don't have it in
The
front of them?
physical copy of it. I mean, if we want to push it out again, I did not know that we needed it since we gave it to everybody while at the.
Yeah. Are you,
So,
the people that were here 2 months ago, did you guys get a chance to look at the bylaw addendum at all?
and it's not mine, but
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to push it out until.
okay, we'll push it.
We'll push it out until next month, and make sure that we pass that out. I'll have Elise do the financial report.
Yeah, so like Jessica said, Mini Mutter, huge success. So thanks everyone who came and cheered their kids on or helped raise money or called grandma. It is our largest fundraiser for the last 3 years. And it just keeps getting better as far as the amounts we're able to raise. The discrepancy between Jessica's numbers and my numbers, it's some of our mini mutter deposits were made after 10/31. And so this is just the month of October for mini mutter. So I will have a separate financial page just for mini mutter. So if anyone wants to go in and see exactly how much we paid on printing and when and where, you can see that. You will see that probably at the next, once, I mean, we're still getting some people that are, and we're not going to say no. So, but there will be a complete cost breakdown and a complete deposit breakdown. The square fees are large because the amount donated via Square is large. We are fairly confident that with our nonprofit status, those fees will be able to be tax deductible once we work with an accountant for this fiscal year. So I'm not really concerned by it because it'll be kind of a wash at the taxes. But if other people have opinions or ideas about how to get around fees, we've looked at lots of different online services. And in order to make it easier for everyone else and allow people to use whatever forms they want, then these are just kind of the way of the world now. So that's kind of where that's at. The other thing I wanted to mention is, so if you see the expenses, the administration expenses are very high. That's because that's where I put the fees for right now, while I discuss with the board where they would like to see them, as opposed to per item. I don't know if that makes sense, but like per item, like this is the fee for this, so it goes here. Right now, I'm just calculating it as bank fees, which is an administration expense, which is why you'll see that administration is really high. It's not anything we're doing or buying. It's just that's where I put the Square fees this month until we kind of come to a consensus on where we want to see them. Another thing to note is the teacher and staff support, the $9,000. That included the stipend that we had already agreed and voted on in the budget. So that went through and is no longer in our hands anymore. So that's nothing new per se.
Can I piggyback off that real quick?
Go for it.
There's some new people here. So for the stipend for the teachers, last year it was $150 that every teacher got. This year it's $300. We have the money and we feel, I mean, everything's just gone up. So we felt like $300 was appropriate. So I think it was $8,700.
$8,400.
$8,400 is part of that $9,000.
So, and then the teacher and staff support on top of that was the conference week. Breakfast, dinners, and snacks, beverages, stuff like that. So that's why you'll see that it's a little high. The other thing to note is printing costs will go above budget this year, just because it's the first year that we are paying someone to print the things for us instead of, as a board, using our own resources, because that was no longer appropriate. We didn't really have an estimate on we came up with a best guess of what we'd be printing, but we will absolutely exceed that. So if anyone has printing connections, please come to us at the end. Although we would like to say that Postal Connections is pretty great and gives us a great deal on lots of our services, because I think they went here. And so, I mean, they like us and give us probably the best deal in town. Yeah, are there any questions about any specifics?
What do you expect printing to be?
Well, like I just said, the budget had, what was it?
500.
Yeah, so we just, because it was essentially zero last year, people were just doing it themselves. We just said 500, but I mean, we've spent already, I would expect no more than 1,000, but I mean, that's still a huge way off from what we thought.
I mean, the other reason why I was thinking about it is like maybe capital expense, PTO buys their own laser jet printer. It's a one-time expense, and then you're just in toner and time at that point, so.
I mean, I like it, but then you have to think about where it would live and who would maintain it.
It lives at my house, don't you know
I
this?
know. I do like that idea though, because
Jesse
it
be
would,
open to keeping it here? Like, is there any issue with keeping the hardware here?
I wouldn't see.
like, yeah, I mean, could we have a PTO printer, like a smaller laser printer in the like corner of the staff workroom? Or
Possible, yeah.
not like not your eating area, but the mailbox room.
We can talk about it for sure.
Okay, yeah, because I
don't
like,
see any conflict with it, it would just be a matter of.
it makes sense to have that.
We are getting right now, it's super cheap. It's 5 cents a copy,
Yeah.
whereas normally it's 15 cents. I don't know if you just liked me or I don't know. So it's 5 cents a copy, and then it's 15 cents for a colored copy when normally it's 45 cents. So he's given us a hell of a deal. But that would be, I'd be
I
interested in
can-
looking into that.
I don't mind pricing out what that would cost, and then, I mean, because yeah, if we can keep one here, that would make more sense and save a lot of money. So, and we could not be beholden to someone else's schedule, which would be nice.
Mhm.
So, yeah, thank you. That's cool.
Yeah, of course.
And we did come in under mini mutter. Our budget was $3,000, and it looks as of now that we only spent $1,394, which is awesome. Does anybody have any other financial questions?
Yes, it can.
Is that something we need a second? Is that-
You've already been looking at mascots. Delightful.
Different sizes.
I mean, I looked at them and they were about 1,200. So, yeah.
These ones were pretty sweet looking.
So that is another thing, Jesse, for the mascot costume, as far as, I mean, we would obviously budget for like a yearly dry cleaning. But we would need to make sure that it's maintained correctly and, kept with care so we can keep it for, I'm hoping at least 7 years, as that's kind of the accounting figures for depreciation. But from the forums that I've looked at, people are like 15 years going strong. It's really up to us how long it can last.
Okay,
So, yeah.
I gotta move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, upcoming events on Wednesday, we have Panda Express tour of the town. That goes all day. I believe they open up at 10 a.m. and they close at 10 or 10:30. So that'll go all day. Go feed your families. Flyers went home, I believe, last Monday or somewhere in there. I passed them out on Friday, so you guys should have all gotten a flyer. Oh, you don't need the flyer. It says on there that you do, but just say we're, Jewel, and they'll be fine. We have Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day on November 14th. We'll meet at Sun Meadow Park at 7:15, and everybody will walk to school at 7:25. And then hot chocolate will be there. Is it just hot chocolate? Yeah. Hot cocoa chocolate will be there for the kids to drink afterwards. We are looking for volunteers for Carnival. Carnival is one of our biggest things that we have going on. It takes a lot. We're looking for essentially like a decor person, a game person, administration, food. I think there's like 6 different categories. So if you're interested in volunteering and kind of being like the head person for games or whatever out of those, you'll have a team underneath you guys to kind of help you out. We're also looking for lunch and office volunteers. I think office is pretty much taken care of for the year, but we're always looking for lunch volunteers. It's from 11 to 12:15 every day. We do have bingo night coming up on the 20th. A sign-up sheet will go out probably the end of this week for bingo night. We just need a couple people to kind of do popcorn and
Calling.
calling. Yeah, just a couple spots in there. Please make sure that you've completed your background check before you guys volunteer. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
So the carnival, is that themed? Is there a theme for the carnival?
Not as of now.
Historically, there has been.
Yeah.
From the looking back at prior people's notes. So if that's something everyone is excited for and there's a certain theme, then I think we'd be open to.
2 years ago, it was a St. Patrick's Day theme. Last year, we found a lot of
We found the
like
COVID
original
stash.
carnival kind of decor, so that's what we used. I think we still have most of it, but that's also part of the committee chair and then the committee.
So if you would like to
Underneath it,
decide the
yeah.
theme, then you should be on a committee.
Anyone else?
Jesse, I have a question about the lunch volunteering.
Yeah.
I could see that it might be intimidating for parents to come in, especially be like, welcome to the lunchroom. Like, there was talk of, or rumor, that you might put together a video. I thought it would be really cool. Maybe that was just a dream. Sorry, guys.
The rumor might have been.
The rumor was me. I just thought it would be cool to be like, this is where you're gonna check in with Cammie and get your badge. Cool, you're in. All right, now you go meet us in the lunchroom. And instead of just being do I just walk around or
Yeah.
you want just be like, this is what you do. Because it's really just kind of chit chat and making sure they're staying on task. But I could see it, at least I know especially someone like my husband, he'd be like, I will never do that because it'd be way too intimidating to me. Whereas if he was able to be like, nope, these are the steps, and then you go and you hang out with the kids, and it's actually pretty fun to be around that many kids at once, because they're just the things they say or want to talk about. But yeah, I don't know. And it would be really fun. We could put it on our website. We might get more people wanting to engage in lunchroom volunteering. So
The next year when we have the costume for mascot.
exactly.
We'll do another
This is
video.
perfect.
For those who haven't ever done lunch help, it's very simple. You check in at the office,
Yeah.
you come in, we basically let you help the kids. You're opening juice boxes. Go-Gurt is the worst because it goes everywhere and the kids can't open it on their own. So we appreciate the help of other people to open Go-Gurt containers. Giving napkins, letting kids go to the bathroom if they need to go to the bathroom. That's basically it. And then you're there for the 3 lunches.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. It's kind of loud at times, but we appreciate any help. But the video idea is a good one.
Okay.
Anybody else?
You asked earlier about the Toys for Tots stuff. The only rules they have for Toys for Tots is no realistic looking weapons. Nothing at dollar store prices. They're ideally $10 and up or of value. You can do homemade items. I was in the Marine Corps. Marine Corps sponsors Toys for Tots. And nothing chemical or food based. So no science kits, no bake your own bread stuff, that kind of stuff. Those are the only rules. They want people to get creative. They want you to think about what your kid would want, and because kids get to go in and pick out their own presents. And so if they made a list of rules, they don't want people to just have 400 G.I. Joes and 300 Barbies. They want kids to have kind of I'm going to a toy store sort of feel.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's the
So
only
$10
rules.
value, no weapons, no chemicals or food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your service.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
Just to, because we talked about the giving tree and everything else, last year it was all gift cards versus where a regular giving tree is, you would get not a name, but a family with items on that. Is that an interest from parents to do it that way?
Yeah.
Versus just the gift cards or only doing the Toys for Tots? That's something just to consider. I didn't bring it up earlier because I'm out of sight, out of mind. But typically that's what a giving tree is. PTO, the board talked about it and we're like, we don't know how we ended up with it. But we have no problem hosting that and doing that. We would just need to work with the fan advocate or any other needs
Yeah.
from other students. If that's something as a PTO membership we would like to do.
Anyone?
I think the risk you open up is if you do family creates your own list, is if the family doesn't get picked, then someone's on the hook to buy those items, whereas gift cards can be universally used for anyone, right? So there will always be a gift card that can be spread to a family, they can spend it however they want. So that would just be the consideration I would have is if families don't get picked on your list, what do you guys do as a board at that point?
Good thought, thank you.
It used to be like, girls' boots size 10.
Yeah.
Or men's mittens small, or,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It used to be things like that, where it wasn't necessarily a kid's name or a family or anything like
Yeah.
that, but just things that the fan advocate was low on, like boots was a big thing.
Yeah.
Winter jackets, scarves, those kind of things, I think, right?
Yeah, for gas cards.
And I thought that was cute. Yeah, gas cards were good, but I thought it was fun to shop for like, I don't have little girls, so I had fun shopping for a little girl's sweater, size small or something, so, I don't know, that's just my two cents.
And another option that I've seen too, when my wife worked at the relief nursery, they would put tags with just a bunch of different items, and then they would allow the families to shop, so they would come in. So similar concept like Toys for Tots, where a family comes in, they can pick a few items, but people think they're shopping for a family, but they're just buying a bunch of items, and then they get to pick whatever they need as well. So that's another option.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:01. Thank you, guys. It did.
Also, if you